Whoa, are you okay? Yeah, sorry. I'm a Rick from another reality. I got uploaded to your clone vat. Hey, don't worry about it, man. I have a dozen. So tell the truth, man. No shame. You're looking at your shrimp body like, what? Is it that obvious? I'm sorry. Yeah, my original body is more bipedal, ape descended. Really? Weird. Does your house look like a tree, or? No, it looks like this. It's, like, identical to this, actually. And it's such a mindfuck. It's all good, man. I'm fine with it. Honestly, you're doing me a huge favor by being shrimp instead of fascists. What? God damn it, when did this shit become the default?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Downtime. With me today is Commander Lance McMillan. Lance, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good, glad to hear it. So we're talking about what we were going to talk about on tonight's show, and there's so much going on. The tariffs, everybody's wondering what's going to happen with the markets. My favorite meme from the congressional, the Library of Congress altering the Constitution on their website. My favorite meme from that was everything you need to know about the Constitution being altered on the Library of Congress's website is that Donald J. Trump's name is all over the Epstein files. Exactly. Get back to that. And Putin, Ukraine, apparently Israel is about to completely invade and take over Gaza. We're thinking of all of these things, and Lance, you came up with something that I think is absolutely. We've talked about it before. But I'll get into all of that later. I'd like you, Lance, to tell me about what you got.
Sure. So my wife sent me copied an article for me to read, and I thought it was well written enough and posed very interesting questions that it would be worth discussing it here. I know you've hung it on the website. So if anybody wants to read the whole article, it's pretty long, but it's very well written. But I figured I'd start off tonight's show with reading part of the introduction from this piece, and we can take it from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, chillin', stand by, hold your hats on tight. The article is by Robert Hawke, and it's entitled Technical State of Civil War. Anyway, this is from near the beginning. On August 4th, Governor Abbott of Texas announced proudly and defiantly that any Democratic legislator who fails to appear for a surprise session of the Texas state legislature by August 5th will see their seat declared vacant. This is a bold attempt to force a quorum for an unscheduled redistricting effort that would gerrymander at least 5 new Republican congressional seats into existence. 5 seats. Bought not with votes, but with ink and knives. 5 seats to hold the U.S. House hostage after the 2026 elections that, by all current indicators, will be a biblical catastrophe for the Republican Party. This is not about state politics. This is not about Texas. This is about bald use of power. This is about permanently tipping the balance of national representation using the architecture of a dying republic to rig the new one being born behind its back. It is a dagger aimed at the heart of the Constitution itself, and it is being plunged in plain sight. Governor Gavin Newsom of California has responded in kind. So have the governors of Illinois, Washington, and New York. They've all declared their own intent to redraw their maps to counterbalance Abbott's theft with a theft of their own. And just like that, any pretense is gone. The guardrails are being sawn off by both sides. The game is rigged. The referees have joined the teams, and the field is splitting down the middle. We are not drifting towards a civil war. We are being carried there on gurneys, on motorcades, in armored trucks painted red, white, and blue, and driven by men with no conscience and nothing left to lose. So he goes on for several pages about how we're effectively in a state of civil war, even if there are no shots being fired, if there are no armies going back and forth. But basically, we have the country divided into two sides who have very clear visions of what it means to be America, and that they do not see the other side's vision as having any relevance whatsoever. The article points out that while the Republicans may be at fault right now for moving in this direction, the Democrats are not blameless in pushing us similarly in this direction, and have been for some years, both sides. And I thought that was an interesting vision and commentary, and I thought we discussed that tonight.
All right. So for those who would like to read the entire thing, first of all, may I suggest that you wait until after what is sure to be a delightful, insightful, very intelligent dialogue between Lance and I, but it is in the description, so you can find it there. It's also pinned in the live chat. Sometimes YouTube updates the live chat, or you don't have it, so the pin is going to be an easy way to find it. If you don't find it there, you'll find it in the description. It is long. Lance emailed it to me, and I started to read it, and I was just like, it's not that long. I got to the bottom, it's not that long. And it says load whole thing. I was just like, oh, okay. It's long enough that it actually had a button to load the whole thing. It's boom. I was like, oh, okay. Before we start this discussion, I would like to point out, and I had mentioned this earlier, this was... In terms of a civil war as well, we also have the Texas governor saying that he's going to send Texas Rangers to other states to get these people back, and the Rangers do not have authority to kidnap people in other states, even if they're even if they're representatives from that other state. You can't. That's kidnapping. But the Texas governor has said at least that he won't recognize essentially the authority of Illinois to shelter these people if they want to shelter there. This was the New York governor's response, which I thought was very telling along the lines of this article.
And I thank them so much for making this journey. You are on the right side of history. And you're not alone. We are in solidarity with each and every one of you and your colleagues in another state hosted by my great friend J.B. Pritzker, who welcome you as well. As I said, history will judge us on how we respond to this moment. But here in New York, we will not stand on the sidelines with the timid souls on the sidelines who don't care, will not invest their heart and soul into this battle. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
Oh, it's always good when a state references George W. Bush talking about Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
And I guess there's one other thing that was in this article that I'd like to point out. Let me get to that in a minute. So what we have here is basically Abbott is saying he is going to, and he's saying the reason he is redistricting is because, and he has said this, Congress is so close they can't afford to lose the votes. So he is gerrymandering explicitly and they've done it before, but nobody's ever outright said it. So he's saying we are going to pick the voters we need in order to win, rather than let the voters pick the people they want. It's absolutely staggering. Now, somebody said, why don't Texans demand the governor's resignation? I mean, I would think even if the governor were a Democrat doing this, I'd be like, you can't do this. Then again, while there's triggers in the responses, they are planning to respond similarly. My question is, and this is posed in the article too, what happens if a president gets elected this way and a red state president gets elected entirely by gerrymandering, and all the blue states say we will not accept a president?
You start with that, and they go to the next step, which is, okay, blue states are not paying their federal taxes because obviously this was not a fair election. We have no reason to pay taxes to a government that's illegal. And then you look at the red states, many of which, I won't say all, but many of which, including Texas, are but recipient states of more federal tax money than they pay into the system. So it's the Democratic states are the ones that are giving more money to supply and keep these red states afloat. So if that money dries up, what happens to those red states? All of their social services begin to collapse. Of course, in their view of the world, that doesn't matter because only billionaires matter. Who cares if peasants die?
So Titan just sent me this, and we have, this was updated 9 hours ago, so there's been a question as to whether or not it's true. We know that Abbott requested the FBI's assistance. In theory, the FBI can assist as advisors, but they can't do anything else, and the reason they can't do anything else is because A, no federal crime has been committed, and B, no federal crime has crossed state lines. There hasn't been multiple state crimes across state lines. So the FBI should not be involved. Having said that, apparently the FBI has agreed to help return the missing Democratic congressman. So if it actually does that, that's another staggering line being crossed, because now you have a red state that does not have the legal authority to enforce this, getting the federal government, who also does not have the legal authority to do it anyway. And because they want to keep Congress, and it is hard to imagine anybody recognizing anything out of this Congress if, in fact, let's assume, and it's not going to happen this way, presumably because of New York and Illinois and California. But let's assume that Abbott gets his wish. He gets 5 extra Republicans. Despite the makeup of the votes in his state saying otherwise, he is choosing the congressman that he wants to send to the federal Congress.
Yeah.
Let's assume that they're short. Republicans are ahead by 1. Democrats are short by 1. Now what? Every Democrat who wants to can say, I don't have to follow anything that comes out of this Congress because this Congress is not elected by the people. This Congress was openly and gleefully gerrymandered. It's really staggering.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's take it a step further.
Mm-hmm.
You'll remember that Julian Assange was taking refuge in some embassy in London for a long time. Yeah. And we really wanted to get hold of him to find out what the hell he'd leaked and everything. So let's suppose that the U.S. sends in special forces, attacks this embassy in Britain, and steals Assange and takes off with him. That would be an act of war. So, by extension, isn't it an act of war if Texas effectively invades whatever state these guys are taking shelter in? That's Fort Sumter right there.
Well, and that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And already, what is it? I think Trump has said that he wants an investigation of corruption into the governor of Illinois. So now he's targeting the political opponents of states that are sympathetic to him. So it's not even his direct political opponents. It's the whole. It's.
And we've talked about that before. We said that was likely to start happening.
Yeah.
And remember, we're barely 6 months into his term of office. So he's got another 3.5 years to continue to pursue this kind of illegal activity, point blank.
You and I have talked about corruption on occasion, and I've been thinking about it recently. Gosh, don't know why, but we talk about it. Usually, when we talk about it because of the Soviet mentality, which still exists in Russia and is as corrupt a system as you can imagine. But what I've been learning more and more about corruption is I've thought of it as corrupt individuals who commit acts of corruption, who no, actually, let me rephrase that, who commit crimes. And, the president is committing crimes. So that's corruption. And now I'm seeing it more as an infectious disease because with Trump, what he's doing is, it's not that he's committing crimes. He is being corrupt, which means only those who are corrupt are capable of being around him. The ones who aren't have to make a decision. They have to. There's that, by definition. They either have to stand up to him or they have to resign. There's no middle ground when you're in a corrupt administration. And so aside from the resignations that we see now, which are kind of similar to what we saw at the end of it's amazing, at the end of his first term, how many people suddenly got ethics. It's like, oh, he's getting out of here. Well, I can't, I'm going to have to resign because this administration just, for 3.5 years, this administration has been doing just so much. And after that last half, I was just like, no, you know what? I have integrity. So, that notwithstanding, when you have this level of corruption at the top, now you can get it in the states. I mean, imagine 5 years ago saying that anybody from any of the states was going to openly say they were gerrymandering explicitly to get 5 extra. I mean, he has said it. Which is explicitly saying, I don't care about any of the votes of the people in my state. What I care about is sending enough Republicans that we can hold power in Congress.
Yep.
So democracy's gone.
Yeah.
Democracy is absolutely gone in Texas. The next question is, how are they going to get him out of office at this point? If he decides he wants to stay, he seems to have set a precedent. If they don't get rid of him for this.
I remind you that during the campaign, Trump said on more than one occasion to his base, if you vote for me, you will never have to vote again. That's the direction they're headed in. Even if nobody casts a ballot, we're still going to have a 80% turnout, and 90% of that 80% were loving Trump. It's South American dictatorship governments. It's coup. It's junta.
I was on a Discord. I was a Pyro's Discord, and he had on some people from Germany, France, also, and everybody was just talking all sorts of stuff. And we were talking about the state of the U.S. government, and the guy from Germany says, Oh, no offense, but the U.S. government's already, the U.S. is already a banana republic.
Yeah.
And that shook me, because at first I was really offended. I was just like, oh, fuck you. There are those of us who are still trying to keep that from happening, and we're fighting, and we're talking about it, and we're doing our shows, and we're doing our, and we got newspapers, and and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, though. Let's just talk about what a banana republic is, what the bar is to clear it. And it seems to me, yeah, if you're in France, if you're in Germany, if you're in one of these other countries, and you're taking a look, yeah, it's a banana republic.
Yeah.
It's,
and
wow.
the frightening thing is how many Americans are content to live under that circumstance.
So, this article continues. Let's see, what happens when the governors of California, New York, and Illinois say we'll no longer accept the authority of a president elected by gerrymander fiat? What happens when the National Guard is told to act against its own citizens? We've already seen it. Federal troops in Portland, federal agents in unmarked vans in Minneapolis, and now a sitting U.S. president selecting military leadership based not on strategy, but on loyalty. This is what a soft coup looks like. This is how republics become dictatorships. One signed order, one packed court, one nullified election at a time.
Yep.
Texas. I've never been a fan of Texas for any number of reasons, but I think for me it was cemented when Rick Perry came out and started talking about secession, and I'm sitting there doing the math, and I'm like, okay. My state, which gets back 70 cents for every dollar we put into federal funding. I'm in a blue state. For every dollar we put in, we get 70 cents back. I'm okay with that because the rest of my country is using it the way it needs it, and we're all in the same boat. So that's fine with me. Until you get states like Texas, that for every dollar they put in, they're taking $1.30 back. And then they're going to tell me that they're going to rewrite our textbooks, and they're going to tell me, that we can't live without them, and they're going to totally awesomize all of our laws and all of these other things, or they'll just leave. And I was like, where are you going to go? Who are you going to sell your oil to without the U.S. Navy to keep pirates from stealing? You're going to sell it all to Texas? To Mexico? I don't think so. You're going to sell it to us, and at a discount rate, because there's no one else you can sell it to. And you're not going to use the federal highway system because we're going to put the army on it. But hey, no, don't mess with Texas. It occurs to me, my getting somewhat snippy probably is not conducive to helping the situation. But having said that, I don't know what you do.
How many people from Texas I've talked to who, oh yeah, we can secede and we'd still have one of the 10 most powerful economies in the world. That's total BS. What you have is petroleum, which means the Koch brothers and other big oil magnates, they're very rich. The rest of you're struggling, and that's why you get all this federal money.
Yep. And I sit there. Last I saw, when I first did my rant on them a few years ago, well, it was actually a rant on gun control, but it was, no, it wasn't. It was on Donald Trump. But I pointed out that Texas, when they're sitting there talking about how awesome they are and how much money they make and how they'd be rich and would all collapse without them, I'm sitting there going, no, they are a net negative to the United States, and by just about every metric I can find. The reason they don't know it is because at the time they ranked 47th in education out of 50. That means 3 states had worse education than they did. What's it take to, but yeah, they'll do fine. They'll do fine without the U.S. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits, and their power generators, they can't keep up with anything. And then, and I think this gets back to something you pointed out, which is dictators, when they get in power, the best way to keep people from realizing how bad things are is to find an enemy and attack that enemy. And in this case, Abbott is attacking Illinois, he's attacking, his own the state house members that have fled, and saying they're the problem, not that he is. Well, this goes back to the Supreme Court that basically said, "Oh yeah, it's perfectly fine if people gerrymander." And not the previous Supreme Court, but this one. This one is just, it's insane. I don't even. So,
well, this is the long-term vision of the, Heritage Foundation and other Republican think tanks. They've been working towards this for decades, which is that we're going to have an autocratic state. We have a Christo-fascist in charge, and he gets to tell everybody down the road what to do. And if you question it or protest against it, you're gone. We have alligator Alcatraz for you to labor until you die from malnutrition because we aren't going to feed you or properly house you. Mm. I mean, seriously, try to figure out in your own mind how alligator Alcatraz differs from, say, Dachau. It doesn't have a gas chamber yet. It doesn't have an incinerator yet. But that's the direction this is going, because when you detain people, they're not under arrest. They're not entitled to all the normal legal channels. And there have been people who've been held in detention for up to 3 years without ever once speaking to a lawyer. They're just held there. And if you put it contingent on, well, if you want to eat tonight, you have to work in the factory that we set up over here.
Yep.
How does that differ from the slave labor camp? Seriously.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but whether it was just for show or whether they meant it, I don't know. But if I recall, the Germans did humanely try to deal with the Jewish problem by shipping them out, and they tried to deport all of them. And what happened was nobody wanted a sudden influx of people. They're like, no, we're not taking. You can't just deport people you don't want and send them to other countries. No, and then they're stuck there, and they're like, well, we can't keep them here. So what do we do? So they were left with one alternative. There's only so long a country is going to detain a population before it comes up with the fancy notion of finding a way to get rid of them.
And the first camps aren't specifically for Jews. In fact, the first camps are mostly for political opponents of the regime. And they're carefully situated near major cities that had more votes for the Christian Democrats than they did for the National Socialists. So that's sending a message right there. And you can go and visit the camp and see how well they're treated, except rather quickly that transitions into what we know. And I don't see the GOP even wanting to hesitate for a moment from going down that very slippery slope, because to their thinking, that's the way it should be.
Well, as soon as you get into Christian nationalism, Christian fascism, it what's the line? Just kill everybody and let God sort it out.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot easier. We do have we have a one of our core members of our team is from Texas, and just said Texan here. That's absolute garbage. So if I'm wrong about anything, please correct me. So I don't know what that was in reference to, but I want to make sure that we get that. Yeah, and Trump. Trump was just the easiest and first one to get in because he's not a Christian by any stretch. So I love it when he tries to pretend to be, though. It's fun to watch. What's your favorite Bible verse? Oh, they're all good. Just flip through, pick one.
Tell me one Bible verse. Oh,
okay. Thank you, Brickwood. I just corrected the other way. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, and I don't. You and I hit on this, I think, briefly. I think you and I did. Where I was asking, your opinion about. Is there another way that you can think of? Because it does become this slippery slope, but the problem is, this is the problem with escalation, right? Which is, nobody thinks they're the one who's taking it the step too far, and then by the time you realize you've gone over the line, everybody's already gone over the line.
Yeah, and I think it's important to reiterate, as we did earlier, the problem we're talking about isn't solely the GOP, because when you have California, Illinois, Washington, et cetera, New York, all saying, we're going to do the same thing in retaliation if you do it, they're at fault too. Yeah, admittedly, the court system may be broken, and they would rule otherwise if you went through the act of trying to, argue it in court. But declaring you're going to do that before you even attempt to go through the court system, it basically means you've already written off the democracy yourself.
Well, and if both sides do this,
yeah,
each side will have warrant to say that they do not recognize the Congress of the United States. It doesn't matter. Either side will have that ability.
Yeah.
And then the question is, when do they pull the trigger on that? And that's whenever they feel they've been pushed to who knows? But you've crossed into this territory where it's a justifiable position that Congress is not. Certified isn't the word I'm looking for, but we're not
valid.
Yeah, it's not valid. And I part of me, I'm very conflicted about hearing the governor of state of New York. I'm like, yeah, go get Texas, and then it's like, yeah, but this is if both Texas and New York have obtained their representatives by a direct violation of democratic principles, even if it's legal. Although they're changing the laws. I mean, New York literally has to rewrite its constitution to make it legal. So New York rewrites its constitution, makes it legal, does it. You then have one of the two, not biggest necessarily, but the states that have the most influence that are blue are California, New York, and for the red states, it's going to be Texas and Florida and or Alabama, probably Texas and Florida. So those are the states that hold, for the red, it's going to be Texas and Florida. So you're going to have one of the key Democratic states with congressmen that are all blue and no justifiable warrant that they've been properly elected by the people of that state. And you're going to have Texas, who's going to have the same problem. Oh, dear Lord. All right. So, do you think at this point, now Abbott has in the past said that he's going to go through with some pretty crazy shit and has at the last minute backed off. How far do you think he's going to take this?
I think, like most elected Republicans, he is answerable to that shadowy, wealthy group of oligarchs that kind of direct the parties. Notice I said parties, plural, on what they will and will not do. But it's like the recent thing with Library of Congress accidentally changing the Constitution that they had on their website. Taking out portions of it that just by coincidence didn't happen to agree with Republican philosophy. It's getting the public used to pushing the boundaries, and then we come back. Except we never go all the way back. We go part of the way back, and then we push it again and pull back. And we push it again, pull back, push it again, pull back. And by the time it's over, all you see is my palm because my face has been completely obliterated by the fist I'm jamming down your throat. And that's kind of, I think, what's going on is they are getting people used to the fact that these kind of over-the-top pronouncements happen all the time. So just get used to it. It's the background dull roar. And every time they're going to advance the agenda just a little farther. Okay, well, we won't redistrict the various districts this time, but we're going to rewrite our Constitution that allows us to redistrict on an individual case-by-case basis, depending on the needs and wants of the people in that particular district, which you can then, play with elections and everything to say, oh, well, the overwhelming majority, 89% said we need to redistrict and make this a blue or a red district or what have you. And that's the kind of thing I think that we're going down. It's, how many times can you change the Constitution on the website before people begin to just go, yeah, that's what the Constitution says, even though it's not what the Constitution says. It's what we want it to say. You see what I'm getting at?
Yes. I remember McCain versus Obama when Obama was running. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And the idea that somebody could be convicted of a single felony and become president was so foreign and so laughable. And it's just the football keeps getting moved down the field. And I like the analogy that you've made, which is even if he ends up walking this back, he's walked so far forward. He's only actually walked a few feet more forward than he did last time. But next time he's just going to walk a few feet more. Next time he's going to, and then finally he's going to be within reaching distance of just.
Yeah, I think your comment about Obama and McCain, with the idea of somebody with a conviction being elected president, my God. And now we've got a guy who's got how many convictions, how many bankruptcies? He's been frickin' impeached twice, and yet he somehow still managed to land in the White House a second time. That tells you in a lot of ways exactly how broken the system really is.
And even if we get him out, you can run a candidate that is that flawed again. That's the new bar. Maybe the next candidate will be good, but then the one after that or the one after that. And the problem is, the real problem is you're going to get one who has all of Trump's ostensive, all of his authoritarianism and his authoritarian goals, but is actually smart. Yeah. That's the nightmare scenario. We lucked out with Trump. He's not a bright guy. And he's getting used by just about everybody, and it cancels out a lot of shit. Sorry, what?
Yeah, and again, I think you need to go back to what I said earlier. This is a group playing the long game. This is the oligarchs running all their private foundations and, heritage foundations, but there are dozens of these kind of things. They're all, because of Citizens United being able to shuffle millions and millions of dollars into shaping the elections the way they want. And if it doesn't happen this time, oh well, they still have plenty of money. They'll still be able to do it next time, and the time after that, and the time after that, until we go and change the system so that the poor guy living in a single wide really does have the same amount of influence with his vote as the guy in the goddamn multi-million-dollar mansion up the road. And that's the thing, is that more and more we're progressing to the point where wealth is the key determinant of whether you have any ability to say anything about how the country is governed, or your state is governed, or your county is governed, or municipality.
So
it's not one man, one vote. It's $1, one vote.
So, but that's sounding closer not to a civil war, but to a revolution.
Yeah.
Which, admittedly, we've had to sit and talk about the distinction between the two, more than once. So, as it stands, I mean, my suspicion is there is a constitutional crisis happening in Texas right now. The reason there's a constitutional crisis is because there isn't, to the best of my knowledge in looking at this, the governor does not have the ability to vacate a seat, to say, okay, he's the person who normally holds this position in the House is absent. I am therefore vacating the seat, thereby giving me the ability to fill it. There is no mechanism for him to do that. So he's going to the Supreme Court.
Let's pause for just a second on that.
Please.
I don't know Texas. I don't know what their constitution says, but is there a provision for doing that, like an impeachment proceeding? So if they wanted to do this, let's assume there is. If they wanted to do this legitimately, they would try to impeach the various representatives who fled and have them thrown out of office, leaving those open to which the governor could then, according to their constitution, appoint people. But you'll notice they're not going down that particular road. They're ruling by fiat.
They're kind of doing it. He's asked their Supreme Court to vacate the seats. I'm not sure their Supreme Court has that authority. They may have the authority to impeach. That's not what he's asking for. What he's asking for is for them to vacate the seats. So he's splitting the difference. My guess is they can impeach and have a trial and do all that other stuff and get rid of but there's a whole process to that. And he said, no, I don't want that process done. I want you guys to vacate the seats, which I don't think the Supreme Court's empowered to do. My suspicion, now I don't know anything about their Supreme Court. It's hard to say because you can get a lot of you can get a hedge money in a state government, or you can get a state government where the governor is hard one way and everyone's like, and you don't know. The fact is there's enough Democrats, solid Democrats in Texas to break quorum if they flee. I'm a little surprised by that. Of course, it's the second time they've done it, but okay. So I don't know how their Supreme Court leans, but if I had to guess, I'd say probably pretty strong to the right, meaning if I had to guess based on absolutely no other information than we're talking about Texas, they're going to do it. They're going to vacate the seats. So if they vacate the seats, he can fill them any way he wants to. So now you have in the state of Texas a majority of members who were elected, who are Republican, a minority of members who were selected by the governor, hand-picked by the governor. It'll be 51, hand-picked by the governor himself. And then however many Democrats are left, which is, I think, 10, somewhere in that vicinity. So he will have picked the entire state house who will then gerrymander and get 5 representatives that are currently Democrat, that's U.S. representatives, to flip Republican. So now you can't vote for the state offices, at least one of the state offices, the House, and your vote is meaningless. Your existence is meaningless insofar as the representation you get at the federal level. If other states don't start to do this, they will see their own power at the federal level dwindle. So New York, California, Illinois, Illinois may or may not be able to make it by this year. I think that the over-under on New York is that because they have to ratify their constitution, they can't do it this year. I think Pennsylvania has said they're gonna do it too. A couple of the states that have said that they're going to do it already have like only 2 Republican congressmen, and you'd still get one, no matter how badly you gerrymander, you still are going to get 1 Republican congressman because you have to have a district that's left that represents all the Republicans. Even if you put all the Republicans in one district, they'll get that district. So you can't gerrymander to 0. But at any rate, what you're going to end up having is no state is going to have a voice in the federal government unless they gerrymander to the whim of the governor, meaning the only office you can vote for. Presumably, you can still vote for president, but even that, not necessarily. And I'll get to that in a minute. The only office you can vote for is the governor, because the governor is going to appoint all the state legislatures who are going to appoint your House and Representative. Think about that that's what we're talking. You will only be able to vote for governor. Now, this gets interesting because different states have different rules regarding the Electoral College, but half the states allow the governor to select who gets the delegates. And the governor has selected based on the vote of his state, basically because that's how it's done, in the same way that the vice president certified the election. It's like nobody's ever considered going another way. And as a governor, you'd be kicked out of office if you said, well, my people voted for one guy for president, but I'm sending all the electors to the other party. That nobody's ever tried that before. So now your vote for governor matters because what's to keep the governor from doing the exact same thing with the Electoral College in at least half the states? Some of the states, they say the governor has no choice. The governor does apportion them, but he must apportion them based on the popular vote of his state. But it's determined entirely by the state. So there will be some states where you get 1 vote, governor, and that's it. The governor will decide who gets your state's presidential votes, who gets your state's votes in the House and Senate, and that's it. That's the next step in this. It's insane. It's absolutely...
Well, it probably goes further because the governor will then also be entitled to make decisions via his handpicked tribe of how votes are counted. Who gets how many polling stations.
Yep.
And you set it up so that it's 99.9% in favor of the governor's candidates, including himself.
And there, to some extent, this is already happening in one way, which is states like Texas are deliberately making it crystal clear they don't want any liberals around. So they're making it hard to get a job if you're a liberal. They're making it hard to just operate or function in any way whatsoever if you're liberal, so that you'll move. They don't want you there. And if you move, that's 1 less vote they have to worry about. And admittedly, we're all tribalistic, and we like to hang with our tribes, and I understand why, you don't want, but what you've got at that point, or this is, again, taking that a step further, which is rather than having the move, basically saying, well, you can stay if you want, but you're going to have no voice because we have either pulled all the polling stations, we haven't cleared out somebody forgot to plug in wow, it's a European plug. I've never seen an American-made voting booth with electronic voting booth with a European plug. How did that happen? Well, maybe next year you'll get to vote.
Yeah.
$2 the sinister porp. Really? Real A2 porpoise. A2 sinister porpoise. Fire emoji. Goat emoji. And because apparently the first one wasn't enough, a second fire emoji.
Hot time in the old town tonight.
Your continued support, Porpoise, is greatly appreciated. I don't know what we'd do without you. Thank you so much for showing your support for In Time and for burning Yuletide goats. I just put up a goat one time. I'm like, we'll see if it catches fire or not. It didn't catch on fire. Now everybody's just like wants to burn the goat. I have created just an entire community of arsonists. I don't know how it happened, but it has happened. Well, thank you, Porpoise. In all sincerity, thank you very much for your super chat. And so, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, you and I were talking on this show. And actually, this Xandring was there, so it was probably on In Time. And you had said something that I found a little shocking, which was that in your view, we were already in a state of civil war. It was just a cold civil war.
Yeah.
And we talked about what it would take for it to become a hot one, and there'd have to be a charismatic leader who would, get people. And the irony is, a lot of times all the leaders got is charisma. They're not particularly bright or whatever. They're just, sitting there walking around on top of the White House. I mean, just whatever they're doing. At any rate, so this article says repeatedly that, shots have not been fired. But there has been kidnappings. I mean, Trump has kidnapped people off of Portland. That was his first term, but there's been citizens who've been deported illegally. We know that they were citizens. Due process is being suspended to varying degrees at varying points, and the courts seem rather complicit with it all. And this man has made the argument, and again, you will find the article in the description and pinned to the top. It's a Facebook article. It's really well worth the read. But his argument is that it's no longer just a cold civil. It is official. It is a civil war. States are declaring war with each other. I mean, literally, that's what the governor of New York said. She literally said we are at war, and while they're not shooting at each other, they're at least threatening to send law enforcement into each other's territory to violate laws that, you cannot. I don't care if they're Texas citizens. If a Texas citizen is in Illinois and has not broken any laws, you cannot send an officer that isn't federal and it has no jurisdiction in Illinois to go pick him up and bodily move him somewhere else. It's called kidnapping in every state in the union. So what we have is states looking to declare war on each other. And even just by Newsom saying, look, if Texas does this is what they're going to have on the ballot, I think in November, for a special election. They're going to say, if Texas redistricts this way, we will redistrict a counter. So and I think for me, the first sign that we had actually crossed that path was when the state of Texas sued, I think it was Pennsylvania, over the vote, and said that Pennsylvania had not voted correctly, and they wanted a whole bunch of Pennsylvania's votes thrown out. Was it Texas? I think it was Texas suing Pennsylvania, and the Supreme Court at least held correctly. They're like, Texas doesn't have standing. The citizens of Texas have no say over the voting process of Pennsylvania. If Pennsylvania wants to stick the name of each nominee in a tank of water and have a throw in an octopus, and the octopus pulls one out, and they say, "This is your nominee." They're allowed to do that. The Constitution is actually really clear on that. It's up to the states to determine how they're going to appoint their delegates. And even if there was evidence of wrongdoing, which there was not, Texas cannot claim a direct injury from that vote because they have no say in the vote and they have no say in the outcome specifically of Pennsylvania's vote. But the Texas sued anyway. I'm sitting there going, you are literally attacking the autonomy of another state. They have the right to do the votes any way they want, including corruptly if they want to, and Texas does not have authority to just try to change it. So that was the first one that I think was like this, that I saw one state attacking another. But we now have New York saying that basically it's open war and the gloves are off with the state of Texas. Obviously, she does not mean physical, but they're not playing when it comes to the delegates. And you can see why the delegates are an issue. Not the delegates, it's House representatives. So I don't know. Any final thoughts, given that long arc from where we were 3 or 4 years ago talking about this?
No, I think that kind of covers it. It's that and I've said this before, the gulf that's dividing the two factions in the country is growing deeper and wider on almost a daily basis. And I think that is by design, because it's easier for oligarchs to control a smaller local area than to try to factor in all the elements of a very complex national system with 50 states, God knows how many counties and municipalities, and all of that leading to a president. And it gets really confusing. But if you break it down to, let's say, okay, there are now 12 separate United States or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
It's easier for a local oligarch to run that state. So it's oozing towards fascism. It's oozing towards feudalism, something along those lines. And I don't think most of the 1% oligarchy think in terms of Democrat, Republican, Christian, non-Christian, gay, straight. None of that matters to them. Those are superfluous issues that they've made issues for us to argue about. To them, the only thing that matters is their personal raw power, the ability to dictate what they want. And I think that's what's going on kind of behind the scenes here.
The other one that I think speaks to that, so 60 Minutes gave an interview. They edited the interview. They gave interviews with both presidential candidates. Trump filed a frivolous lawsuit against the owner of 60 Minutes, Paramount. Was it against Paramount? I want somebody will correct me in the live chat. Good, frivolous lawsuit that Paramount and CBS would no doubt win. They were going to win. It was it wasn't a SWAT suit per se, but there was no chance in hell that this suit was gonna take. But if they settled it, which is to say, we will give you money and drop the suit, a bribe.
Yeah.
Then, and so they found a legal loophole, a legal means through which the president can say, bribe me this much money and I will let the merger happen, or I'll let, whatever it is. And so it's got nothing to do with whether Trump was treated fairly by 60 Minutes or not. It's got nothing even to do with Trey Parker and Matt Stone and, that episode, which was hilarious as hell. And I think should be required reading in every classroom. Everybody should see that episode. But as upset as he may even get about that, all he cares about is that at some point, they have to pay a price for being able to do that, and that price gets paid to him directly. And as long as he's getting bribed, it doesn't matter if you're gay. It doesn't matter if you're trans. It doesn't matter if you're making fun of him even to some extent. None of it matters. It doesn't matter whether it's 60 Minutes or some Christian fundamentalist. It doesn't matter. And he can get equally outraged. And that's the other thing I've noticed. His sense of outrage is about the same on every topic.
Oh, yeah.
I loved when at first he was outraged about how many guns there are in this country. And it's like, do you remember this one? He was like, we gotta do something. He's sitting on it this long time. We gotta do something about the number of guns in this country. There's too many people dying from guns, and I think we need strong leadership on guns. Literally, they broke for 10 minutes. He comes back and he's just like, everyone knows that gun rights are one of the most important rights. It was like, that was 10 minutes. Somebody just took him. No.
What the president meant to say was,
he just, without even skipping a beat. Oh, dear Lord. All right. Well, thank your wife for the interesting article. Thank you for bringing it. I think it was a really worthy discussion. Again, the article is in the description. It's also pinned in the live chat, and I think we'll probably put a copy on general in the Discord. Come join us on the Discord, see what we're all about. Become a member, get notifications. We also do breaking news. My suspicion is we're going to have breaking news on a variety of subjects in the coming...
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to stay on top of that, and we're also going to keep doing these kinds of discussions, which Lance is so patient and willing to come on and just shoot the shit on. So let's talk about how the United States is collapsing, shall we, for 45 minutes. He's willing to come on with me. So thank you very much for coming on, as always. And thank you all for your support. And look forward to seeing you in time Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. That may float. We have a couple of guests and a couple of shows that we have planned. So if you're staying on the Discord is the easiest way to find out what happens, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you get the notifications, especially of the breaking news, because you're not going to be notified of the breaking news if you don't hit that bell. Thank you all, and we will see you next time. Good night, Lance.
Good night.